Today on Woodworking with Wes, we're going to do a garden bench, and it's the perfect project to grow your skills. The star of this bench is the solid 2.5-inch thick clear pine slab. Clean, smooth, and full of character. Its natural grain and generous thickness give this seat a bold, sturdy look while keeping that warm, rustic charm. No knots, no fillers, just beautiful, solid piece of wood that makes this bench feel substantial and timeless. With every project, the first thing that we're going to do on this one is going to be the legs. Now, I've done the two legs on one side. I put it together just so you can see how it goes. Look how it leans in a little bit. There's a cross stretcher. It's mortised in with a fancy little mortise that sticks through. But let's start off and show you how we start with that. We start off with a square board. I have marked here where our mortise will be cut, and I have marked the angle that we'll end up cutting it after we get done to give it that leaning in look for our leg. And then here's our little cross piece, and I'll talk about this in just a minute, but here's our little cross piece that we're going to be doing. First thing let's do, let's drill the mortises. At the drill press, I have a Forstner bit set up in my drill press. I have marked where I'm going to be drilling my mortise, and I have marked a center line where I'm going to line up the point of my Forstner bit. I've put a backstop on a little board here so that I know that everything was going to be held in place. And you can see how we get that lined up right there. Let's go ahead and drill a mortise, see how it comes out. There's our first hole. We'll drill another one here, and then we'll go through and we'll take little bites out of it to clean it up along our straight line. Okay. First we line up our point, just like we did on the last one. Make sure we're right where we're supposed to be. There we are. And then we'll turn it on and go. Okay, there's our mortise drilled. We'll take and we'll finish that off. We'll smooth that up with a wood rasp on the inside. Now I take my wood rasp and just clean up the inside of my mortise like that. Around on the, let's see, let's take this side. The nice thing about a wood rasp, you have a real rough side and a little bit smoother side, and you can clean up what you're filing very nice. We're going to clean it up so it's just like that. We'll do that, get it all done. With the mortises all cut, it's now time to cut our leg at the angle. Now before we do, and while we have it still square, there's one little cut I need to make at the top. This will end up being the tenon at the top of our leg. And we want it to be square on one side, slight angle on the other, so that as it goes into the mortise on our bench top, it will tighten. We've got our saw set at the right spot. We're just going to take a quick cut. And there's our cut. We'll do the same to our other leg, and then we'll cut our long angles, and I'll show you how we do that in a second. The next cut I'll make will be along this angle line right here. I'm going to do it freehand, and I'll make the cut a little bigger than the line and take it over to my edge sander and sand to the line. Then this distance is the same all the way across. I'll bring it back to the table saw and make this corresponding cut. just like that, sanded to the line. Our mortises have a round end on them because we just used our Forstner bit to make the mortise. So in order to make the tenon, I used my handheld trim router and a 1/2 inch round over bit, and I just rounded the end of the tenon, and I used a line here to mark it with. I did the same on the top of my leg where it will fit into the top of the garden bench. And it has a tenon also that is rounded on the end. So let me show you how we do that. Let's start with this as our cross piece. Like I say, we have our 1/2 inch bit set up in our trim router. And that creates the round end on our tenon, just like that. We'll go ahead and do all the rest of them. To create this texturing effect on our pieces, I'm using the wire wheel on my restorer. I've established a stop block here on my bench so it doesn't fly away from me, and we'll just put it up like this. And you can see how that restorer, that wire wheel, digs out the grain and gives it a real wire brushed texture to it. Now we're going to be doing a little more than that before we're all done. This is the first stage of our rustic look that we're going to be putting on our bench. But I just wanted to get started with the wire brush from the restorer to get going on it. And that just takes off that smooth planed finish and sanded finish. It also takes off all of my pencil marks and things like that. And gives it that rustic wire brush effect. Okay, let me go ahead and get that much done. Here is our cross piece. You can see how that wire brush just really gives it kind of a nice effect. I like the way that does. And like I say, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, but let me go ahead and get the rest of the wire wheeling done that I want to get done. And then we're going to get ready to put some legs together. Once I had my wire brushing all done, I took my dovetail saw and I cut me in some slots on the end of all of the tenons. As we assemble, we'll be sliding in a walnut wedge in there and pounding that down to spread and tighten the end of our tenon in our mortise, and that will make it very secure. So as we assemble, that will be one of the things we do to make sure that it's good and strong. The tenon all done and ready for the top of our, to come through the top of our bench. This is our top of our bench. This will come through to the top of the bench. And so we had to drill our mortise, and we did our mortise the same way that we did in the side of our leg. We're going to use a 1 1/8 Forstner bit and drill down and do it. I have it marked where I did. And I'll do the same thing over here. When we get done, because we're not in the drill press, it's a little harder to clean up the hole. I'm just going to clean up the hole with my chisel just like this and just take off that part in the middle. And I'll do that and clean that up. But let's just go ahead and show you how I get started drilling. I have a center line here. I put the outside of my Forstner bit on my mark. And then I check it and make sure I'm in my line. So there's my line, there's my line, there's my line. I'm right where I need to be. And you have to make sure that you hold it as square as possible. You want your hole to line up and down. And we're looking like we're doing good. Okay. Okay, there's our first hole. We'll go ahead and make another one here and then one in the middle and get this all cut out and cleaned out. It'll be just like this, and then we'll clean it up so it'll be a nice smooth hole round on the ends, straight on the sides. With all of the wire brushing done and my mortising and tinning all done, with my slots all cut, it's time to dry fit now. Now I went ahead and I made sure that as we dry fit, that things fit. There's our cross piece in our legs. Our legs are correct. And I don't want to pound this in just yet because I want to put glue on there, but that's how our legs are going to look from each side. This slot is going to be a stretcher that runs all the way from end to end and fits over this in a kind of a half lap situation. I want to make sure that I get my dry fitting all done so that everything is correct. This is the underneath side of the bench. I have it flipped over. We're going to go ahead and put a wire brush texture on it before we go ahead and put the legs in also. But I wanted to just show you how that's going to start coming together and what it's going to look like with our legs all on. I'm going to go ahead and get the legs all fit, all the dry fit all done and everything, and then we'll get ready to glue it in and put the legs together. Next step. With the dry fitting all done, it's time to glue together everything. I'm using Titebond 3 because Titebond 3 takes a little bit longer to dry. It gives you a little bit more working time. And so we're going to use that because this is going to take a little bit of time to put together. And we're just going to spread a little glue on the tenon like that. Slide that in there. Let's get that on the other side too. Okay, and then glue on the upper tenons that go into the seat. Okay. Even though this is a little bit slower drying glue, I still need to work very rapidly in order to get everything done because we have to do both of these at the same time because we'll level it before the glue is all dry. Okay, let me go ahead and get the rest of it done. We'll come back when I'm standing on its feet. The next step is to glue in our walnut wedges that we made. We'll go ahead and put a little glue in here and a little more glue around the outside edge. We want this to be a good tight joint, and all of this is going to get sanded and cleaned up. So if we put a little extra glue in there, that's not a big deal. All right, let's take our wedges, and we've got to have a sharp one here because it's a very tiny hole. There we go. Oh, wrong hammer. Okay, there's our wedges all glued in. And like I say, we'll go ahead and let those dry. We'll cut those off. And we're going to sand and clean up these tenons on top so that it's a little smoother. And then we've got a lot of distressing to do. I'll go ahead and get the rest of the wedges pounded in. The glue is dry around the wedges that we have pounded into the end of our tenons. The same thing has been down here. We pounded in our tenons, the glue is dried, and we've sanded it flush. We're going to go back now and we're going to be doing our distressing. We have also installed a center trestle. So that gives us more stability from end to end. So sanding and distressing is the next step. Our client wants to do his own finish, so with the distressing all done, this bench is ready for delivery. And we'll see you next time on Woodworking with Wes.